and gentlemen, it's time for a wrap-up of E3 2018. I had the pleasure of attending this fine gathering of PR hypebeasts and exhausted-looking video game journalists, and through some random chicanery, I managed to get hands-on with pretty much everything I wanted to play, and behind closed doors with everything I was allowed to do, so I got a pretty good bird's eye view of what went down at this year's E3. This was my third E3. It's always changing so rapidly, and every E3 is sort of like emblematic of where the industry is now and where it's gonna go in the next little while. I mean, take Fortnite for example. 2 years ago, I played Fortnite in this little office thing off to the side. It wasn't even on the main floor. The thing was about the size of a broom closet. No one cared about it. Epic Games emailed me 3 times to confirm the appointment because they were worried I wouldn't show up. Like, that was 2 years ago. In 2018, this is Fortnite now.
But what a performance from Courage as well. Unbelievable.
Something tells me that Epic Games wouldn't really care if I didn't turn up for my allotted E3 appointment this time around. But E3 evolutions aren't always about responding to what's blown up in a good way. Sometimes they can be about responding to something that's blown up in the worst possible way. Enter Electronic Arts in 2018, who went up to ridiculous lengths this time around to assure us that Battlefield 5 and Anthem won't have any kind of loot boxes at all, while completely glossing over the fact that their entire sports category, like literally more than 50% of their conference, is entirely built upon microtransaction loot boxes, which are essentially gambling. They kind of just glossed over that point and they're like, hey guys, these 2 games are fine, and that's just how EA does at this point. But man, this press conference was just the worst. Like, ugh. I mean, it was 6 minutes into their conference that we got the first Battle Royale announcement of E3 2018, and it was just one dude on stage just like saying it.
You'll get something I know a lot of you have been asking for.
It's Royale.
At least COD sort of put some effort into the announcement of Battle Royale with like a trailer that talked about how it might be interesting and good or whatever. This was just a still image and being like, hey guys, Battle Royale. They didn't even say battle, they just said Royale.
Royale with you.
And then the Anthem section, which was just like a total train wreck. You had these developers up on stage offering absolutely no new information whatsoever. I really challenge you to go back and look at the questions that were being asked. In fact, look, I'm just gonna play them now.
Now, I've heard you call this power armor a couple different things. Is it a suit? Is it a javelin? Like, what's the canon term here? Can you speak to what it's like to create a new world like Anthem from the beginning? Now, something I think a lot of players out there maybe don't stop to think about is just how much work goes into creating a new intellectual property, or IP as we've been saying. Now, you know, we've seen all these different creatures, and Mark, you mentioned the storms. What's the process of creating a game like from scratch?
I don't care!
How were those questions anything other than a complete waste of time? And then the gameplay they showed was just flying and trash mobs, flying and trash mobs. And then for some reason they thought it would be a good idea to put like concept art in the presentation, like early concept art. If it's early concept art and your game comes out in 8 months, why are we seeing it now? I have no idea what they were thinking with this. It was an absolutely terrible showing, and I don't even know what to say. And the thing is, I actually went behind closed doors with Anthem and I saw it uninterrupted away from all that bullshit, and it actually looks pretty promising. It's way more impressive up close when you can actually see the flying and the verticality, and it's uninterrupted and you get a feel for the different classes and weapons. It looks like a really cool Iron Man meets Destiny game, but it certainly doesn't answer all the questions we might have about whether or not this is actually a BioWare game. I am looking forward to it as a fan of the looter shooter genre, but I'm not looking forward to it as a BioWare fan. And everything that I've seen to this point indicates to me that there's probably not going to be an end game, and I don't imagine we're going to see the kind of compelling BioWare narrative that we've come to know and love. Either way, that's what it's shaping up as being. It's out next year. Fingers crossed it doesn't suck. But boy, did you guys see that Command & Conquer segment?
Please join me in welcoming to the stage Nick at Night.
Did you see the FIFA segment?
When we launch on September 28th. And that's our FIFA 19 news.
Did you see the Madden segment?
I'm good, baby. How you doing? I've been good. You still recovering from that butt whooping? Wow, already starting. Okay.
And the way they announced that new Star Wars game from Respawn, the developers of Titanfall 2.
Someone's super excited about that man on PC, right? Yeah! So,
And did you guys see that Command and Conquer segment?
A nice little strategy game for those of you out there. It's a good genre.
At this point, I'm of a very firm view that EA is not actually a video games company. They are just a conglomerate that happens to make video games. The conference was so hilariously out of touch that I have to wonder why they even bothered. Next year, I really just hope that they roll some trailers from some games that we actually want to see, and they say, thank you very much. I'm sure everyone will be way more happy, except for all the people that like to make the cringe montages. But now, from a bad news story to a good one. Now, EA aren't the only ones responding to a catastrophe. Xbox has lost this console generation comprehensively. PlayStation is outsold at 2-1. Now, obviously, there's no mystery behind this. The library of exclusive PS4 titles is absolutely stellar, and the library of exclusive Xbox One titles is almost non-existent. God of War came out like just after Sea of Thieves and just before State of Decay 2, and God of War is like the highest rated game of the generation, and Sea of Thieves, the Kraken doesn't have a body. Now, I don't mean to dump on Xbox because I'm actually a huge fan of Xbox. The original was like my default system, as was the Xbox 360. I only recently made the PS4 my main system because of how much PS4 were crushing at this generation. But we have to admit that the always online, Kinect-enabled, sports, Call of Duty, sports debut of the Xbox One has left this like 5-year hangover that Xbox still has not managed to recover from. But you know what? Microsoft know that, and this year at E3, they did everything they needed to do to show that they were aware of it and that they were in for the long haul, ready to fix what was clearly broken. Phil Spencer is a fucking cool dude, and he actually understands video games. So when he got up there and he announced that Microsoft had bought 5 studios with the intention of building this first-party library over time, then everyone was like, yes, that's exactly what you need to do. Thank you very much. And I think what's really great is that everyone seems to be quite on board with this. It's like, even if you're a PlayStation fanboy, you kind of want Xbox to succeed because we don't want this industry descending into this like monopoly with Sony just controlling everything and Nintendo Switch being off on the side doing its own Nintendo thing. You want some good competition, and everyone kind of rallied behind the idea that Microsoft were trying to rebuild, and everyone wants that to happen, and I just think that's a really good thing as well. And can I just make the point as well that the Xbox is actually the most consumer-friendly console on the market today? The Game Pass, which is like $10 a month, gives you a disgusting amount of value, including access to all of their new release titles on day one. Xbox are very, very big on backwards compatibility in a way that Sony wouldn't ever even try to be, and you can literally play quite a few of your old Xbox 360 titles on the Xbox One now, and they're adding more titles every day. They're committed to making all of their new release stuff accessible on both the PC and the Xbox One, which is really great for any PC enthusiasts out there, and they're completely in favor of cross-play on consoles, while Sony are literally holding Fortnite accounts hostage because reasons. They've in the past said it was because like protecting children or something bullshit like that, but it's just come out recently from a guy that used to work in that department that it was entirely about the dollars and cents, which we always knew. It's super anti-consumer. One of the biggest stories out of this E3 was the way that Fortnite is this giant thing, and finally people are turning their attention to the fact that crossplay is being held hostage by Sony. I love me some Sony exclusive, but that shit is just straight up anti-consumer, and it absolutely needs to stop. And speaking of Sony,
it's Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer! Remember that one?
I was at the super weird, super awkward Sony PlayStation event thing that went down. We were ushered into this sort of town hall thing, and we were kind of standing around like, what the fuck was this? And then this guy came out playing the banjo. Only the thing is, no one in the audience was listening. I was there in the crowd, and everyone was just talking over the top of him. And then he ended, and then the Sony guy came out and started talking. No one could see him because we were on this level, like, it was just a floor, so it wasn't like elevated seating. Everyone was talking over him as well, and then they started playing the Last of Us trailer. The trailer was fine. I'm not a huge Last of Us fan, but it seemed to ring all of the Last of Us fans' bell. And then that ended, and then we had this like 40-minute walk where we had to go from one hall to the next and get seated, and there were all these problems, and the stream went down, and I know everyone at home was absolutely like hating this. People in the audience were like semi-okay with it, but we're also looking around being like, what the fuck is going on, and why are we now in a different place? It was very, very weird. Now, Sony's press conferences copped a lot of flack this year for being like less impressive than last year, and unquestionably it was. It didn't like hit massive home runs like last time, but I think it's also important to remember that Sony showed 4 amazing system-selling games that are going to be out in the next like 18 months to 2 years. They showed Last of Us 2, which everybody loves. They showed Ghost of Tsushima, which I actually went behind closed doors with as well, and it just looks absolutely stunning. It's like Assassin's Creed in Japan with this huge cinematic bent. It just looks really incredible. They showed Death Stranding, which I'm getting increasingly frustrated with at this point because it's like this constant ball tickling going on and none of the money shot action that we need. we need to understand what this game is, and Kojima, you're just taking too long to explain it. And the final one was Spider-Man, which I played, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's super fun. I love it. These are 4 great games that are coming out in the next while. Xbox, they showed a lot of games. They didn't necessarily own all those games. They weren't exclusives, and we don't know when their exclusives are coming out. Like Crackdown is next year now. The Halo game, we don't know when that is. I think that Xbox's show was more impressive, but I do think that Sony had some real bread and butter action going on for real stuff that we're actually going to pay for. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters. Good games exclusive to a system that are coming soon, and that's what Sony did. But seriously, fuck off with this crossplay shit. It's absolute garbage. Man, this is getting all serious. Let's lighten the mood.
Come on, E3! We got ready to go!
Now, this may look cringe to you, but I can assure you, if you were in the audience, it was fucking amazing. This guy is called like AK Wilson or something. I'd never heard of him before, but he's incredible, and I think he should be knighted. He was like the highlight of my entire E3. Anyway, they wheeled him out while they were demoing Rage 2, which is a sequel to the original Rage, but completely reimagined, completely different. It's being made by id, the guys who make Doom, and it's also being made by Avalanche, the guys that make Just Cause. Thing is, I played this, and I have to say, it was actually my game of show from a hands-on perspective. It was the best, most fun thing that I played at E3. The gun mechanics were just incredible. It has literally the best shotgun I've ever used in a game. It was so satisfying. The abilities that you had were fantastic. The whole aesthetic and design and soundtrack and everything about it was so good. I'm super excited about this. It's immediately gone to the top of my list of stuff that I'm looking forward to next year because it was just like super solid. Anyway, Rage 2 was awesome. Loved it. They announced a new Doom sequel, which is just fantastic because Doom was just fucking incredible. They announced a new Wolfenstein sequel as well, and you're going to be playing as like Blazkowicz's daughters, which is awesome. And they've also just released this big DLC drop for Prey. Prey is a fantastic game. If you haven't played it, go and check it out. This new mode adds this sort of like roguelike thing where you have to escape from the moon, and every time you do it, it's different. Early reviews indicate that it's excellent. I plan to check it out. I just really appreciate the fact that they stuck with Prey because it was a little bit underappreciated when it came out. So I really like hats off to Bethesda for sticking with it. Then we get to the big deal. We get to Fallout 76, and this is tricky. It's very, very tricky. Look, the internet is pretty cautious about Fallout 76 at this point. On the one hand, it looks like the AAA Rust/Daisy game that we've never got before. You know, it's like, let's do that genre, let's do it properly. And a lot of people are really excited about that. But at the other hand, it's not a traditional Fallout game. I think the internet would be much more receptive to this if it didn't seem like Todd Howard was trying to say that it was a Fallout game, but everything we learn about the game indicates that it's not really a Fallout game. Like, there's no NPCs, or there sort of are, but there's sort of not. There's only like robots and maybe ghouls or whatever. Indicating to us that there's probably not a lot of story going on in this game, even though Todd Howard promises there's like a story and stuff, and you have to be online, and that's pretty, like, that's a big deal in the world of Bethesda, because Bethesda fans love playing offline. There's lots of other things that go around like this, but the point is that we don't quite know what it is yet, and it feels like Todd Howard is sort of like speaking out of both sides of his mouth as he's done in the past, so everyone sort of has their like suspicion caps on. We have to see, it comes out later this year, there's a beta before that as well. I'm optimistic, but I'm also quite cautious as well. And as though like Bethesda were foreseeing the discomfort around this, they also announced Starfield, which was like their new IP that they've been working on for a million years. They just showed us a logo, wow, logo, fonts, hooray. And then they did exactly the same thing with Elder Scrolls 6. We knew both of these games were in existence. This was just like a bit of smoke and mirrors to get a bit of hype going at the end of the press conference. It did the trick because everyone loves this, but at the same time, it's important to remember that it's almost impossible that these games will be appearing on this generation of consoles, and we're going to be waiting at least 3 or 4 years before we actually play these, so keep that in mind. Anyway, that's Bethesda. Let's bring out the dancing bear. Ubisoft, they really love their Just Dance memes. They can't get enough of them. Okay, Ubisoft, like Bethesda, and unlike EA and Activision, are an actual video games company. They make video games that are a little bit outside the box. They make interesting stuff. They back their products. You know, when Rainbow Six Siege came out and it sucked, Ubisoft didn't cut and run. They like fixed it and made it great. And same with The Division. When Mass Effect Andromeda came out and it sucked, EA didn't fix it. They just cut and ran, and that was it. There's something different about Ubisoft as a company, and they're not perfect, absolutely, but you get a sense that they're really invested in the idea that we're here to make good, fun video games, and that did come out in their press conference as well. For Honor, for example, has a new DLC pack coming out at the end of the year. They've done a lot of work on that game in the last little while, like dedicated servers and in just improving its performance and balance and all that sort of stuff. I played it while I was there and actually really liked it, and I'm not a For Honor player at all. I just really respect the fact that they're sticking with this the same way that they've done with their other games. It's becoming like the Ubisoft way, and I really appreciate it. I really wish their games didn't launch so broken, obviously, but it's good to see that they at least try and fix what is broken when it does go down. Speaking of Division, that's getting a sequel too. I've already done lots of coverage on that on this and on Layman Gaming, so I'm not going to talk about it there. I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested in more Division news, but suffice it to say, it looks pretty cool and I'm quite looking forward to playing it next year. The new Beyond Good and Evil trailer was one of the best CG world building trailers I've ever seen in my life. It was like up there with Blizzard quality stuff. It was absolutely fantastic. We still don't know what this game is yet. It's going to be a long, long way off, but little snippets of gameplay look cool, and it just seems like they're being really bold with this. They're building something big and great, and I really wish them the best of luck with it. It wasn't all high fives and one-ups though. The new Skull and Bones game, I don't know, man. This isn't ringing my bells at all. It just kind of looks like Assassin's Creed 4, but without like 70% of the game. It's just all the naval combat. You can't even fight other people on ships when you're boarding them, which was like one of the best parts of the thing. I'm not really seeing enough that separates this game from AC4, so I'm very, very skeptical about this one. And Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I played that for an hour. I did not like Assassin's Creed Origins. I finished it. It was 40 hours that I considered extremely painful. This is exactly the same as that, like exactly the same, only the combat I found to be more frustrating, and there's naval stuff in there as well, but there's now a stamina bar on the ship for some unknown reason, which means it's nowhere near as satisfying. I don't know, I know I'm whinging because everyone loves Origins, but the point is, if you didn't like Origins, you're not gonna like this. If you liked Origins, you're probably gonna love this as well. So, what about Nintendo? Nintendo are releasing a new Smash game. Now, as much as EA seems to be completely out of touch with anyone that plays video games, Activision seems to be completely out of touch with anyone that purchases video games. During E3, we learned about the Call of Duty Black Ops 4 Season Pass theme that's going down. If you don't know about this yet, you probably should, even if you're not a fan of COD. The way it works is that there's a Season Pass which you can buy only as part of the collector's edition of the game. You can't buy it standalone anymore. At least not now. They say they'll release the Season Pass on its own later on. Like, lucky us, we get to buy the Season Pass later on its own, whoop-de-doo. And you can't just buy certain parts of the DLC anymore. You have to buy the entire Season Pass. So if you're only interested in Call of Duty Zombies and you're not interested in any of the other DLC that they have on offer, bad luck, you have to buy it all. Now, to the credit of the COD community, they are pushing back on this hard, and a lot of their major YouTubers are coming out saying this is absolute garbage, don't treat us this way, this is rubbish. But it's exactly the same as what's happening in Destiny 2, and the entire Destiny 2 community seems completely fine with just going along with this must-purchase DLC Season Pass thing. You have to buy the entire thing. It's $35 for a year of content after purchasing the Forsaken DLC. The community seems totally fine with that. It boggles my mind how, like, I'm the bad guy for calling out this sort of rubbish when clearly this is so anti-consumer. It's not right that Activision is charging this way. If people want to purchase things, they shouldn't have to purchase all the things. They should purchase the things that they want. And this is forgetting the fact that both of these games are still stuffed full with microtransaction and loot boxes that are essentially gambling. You can't choose the things that you want to buy. You have to gamble for them through their stupid supply drops and their stupid Eververse. So Activision are at this point 100% the most out of touch publisher when it comes to consumers. EA is literally better than what Activision are right now, and just because they get like Sekiro Shadows Die Twice from FromSoft, which looks amazing by the way, doesn't give them a free pass to like get away with this rubbish. This sucks, and everyone should be speaking about this. We can't let this become the new norm, because if Activision gets away with it, everyone's going to get away with it, and that sucks. Anyway, that puts me in a bad mood. I shouldn't talk about it anymore. You know what puts me in a good mood?
Can't deny it, it's all true. But everybody still wants to live here. This city's always got a promise for you. Might be a lie, an illusion, but it's there, just around the corner, and it keeps you going.
So here's how this went down. 2 CD Projekt Red developers are actually my patrons, and they contacted me and they're like, dude, do you want to come along and check out Cyberpunk 2077? And I'm like,
Zajebiście.
That's Polish for fuck yes, by the way. You're welcome. So I go in there, it's in this theater, it's 1 straight hour of gameplay. It's being played by the developer himself. It's not like, you know, pre-recorded or whatever, like you can see him actually playing it. And like, it was just the most incredible 1 hour demonstration of gameplay I've seen in a long, long time. Like, I remember seeing Soul Calibur on Dreamcast and my eyes like bleeding, being like, what is this? I remember watching Super Mario 64 for the first time and my head just exploding as my brain was trying to make sense of like, what is going on here? How is this a thing? Cyberpunk 2077, the trailer that I saw was the first time I'd experienced that as a grown adult, you know? It was that impressive, and I'm gonna do other coverage of it in future talking about what I saw and what it's like and everything else, but you've probably seen all that anyway. All of the journalists talking about it, all the gushing that's going on, it's all true. It just looks like an absolutely phenomenal genre-defining title. I cannot wait for it, and it was unquestionably my highlight of the show. Overall, E3 2018 for me was interesting because it was the start of the transition to the next generation. You know, like, you saw some titles that are not going to come out this gen, like Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. There's no way we're getting them this generation. You saw Cyberpunk 2077, which is probably going to come out this gen because they said it will, but it will unquestionably also have a next-gen version. You had stuff like the CEO of EA talking about the fact that they're going to be investing more and more in streaming technology, and I had conversations with developers behind the scenes that, you know, indicate that this is probably going to be the last generation of consoles, as in the next one, right? After that, it's going to go full streaming. You know, there's going to be little pockets of it here and there, but it's going to be platforms where you can play it on your Android phone and on your tablets and on your PCs, and you just hook into the, you know, EA, Origin, whatever. It does all the computing in the cloud, and it doesn't matter how shit your computer is, you can still play it. I know it sounds like there's some distant dream, but really they're working pretty hard on making it happen sooner rather than later, and we saw evidence of that at this E3. We're hitting the last sort of like stretch of what this generation is capable of, and we're thinking about the future, and you see publishers talking in those terms, and that's always exciting. It always raises new question marks about what's possible in the future. I don't know, I just think that's sort of fascinating to watch. You know, it's like, things are starting to happen, and you got that sense here this time around. But either way, it's going to be a big year for games. It's like there's some cool stuff coming along, and we're really excited about it. I'm not a huge fan of the whole, like, we're going to announce a game that's coming out in like 6 years' time trend, which seems to be setting in right now. But look, whatever. There's still going to be plenty of stuff that we can play in the meantime, so I'm not complaining. That was my E3 2018. I hopefully will be going again next year. I'll answer any questions you might have in the comments below. Put them down there. And if you want to support me, drop the video a like and subscribe. And also, I have a Patreon. And if you want to support that, that's the best way to do it. It helps me do what I do. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much for watching, guys. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.